Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome to Soul Brothers with my dear friend Eno and myself, Simon, where it is our job to not only throw you into the Solana rabbit hole and show you around in our exciting ecosystem, no, also to make you aware of exciting personalities building in and around Solana.
Our mission is to take you on the latest and greatest so that you never run out of fun things to talk about. Simon, we have a very, very special guest today. He used to lead not only communications, but eventually the head of strategy for Solana Foundation. And now he's the progenitor of all things IBRL. It is our absolute pleasure to introduce to the podcast Austin Federa, co-founder of Doublezero. Hey, Austin, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, sir.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
thanks
for having me.
How cold is it in New York, by the way?
It's like -2. So,
okay, yeah, no,
right.
it's getting pretty cold there.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I mean, yeah, it's not Dubai, but it is pretty much the weather in Seoul in the winter is New York.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Humid, cold, windy.
So you must be really excited for Abu Dhabi, right? This breakpoint is going to be, it's on record to be the biggest breakpoint ever.
Yeah, it's okay. So I will say it's very hard to pack for these type of trips because it is, 1,000,000 degrees outside, but then everywhere you go inside, it's like the air conditioning is just crazy. Like it's the same problem with Miami where it's like, what do you wear to Miami? It's like you actually wear like normal, like fall clothes because everything is just so cold.
Yeah,
that was my token 2049 experience this year in Dubai. Was like when I'm inside, I need a sweater. When I'm outside, like I'm just sweating.
But luckily it's winter here. Okay, awesome. So it's actually it's really all right. Like it's not super cold outside. Like it's good. It's perfect weather honestly for a conference because you're not gonna sweat your ass off. You're gonna have a good time here. We're already assembled here in the Solana economic zone right now in Dubai with a lot of Solana builders. But obviously we are super excited to talk about Doublezero with you today, but also a little bit about Austin, honestly, because actually, who is Austin? Many people don't know because we know that you just spawned as the head of strategy somewhere for Solana Foundation, and then you became the co-founder of Doublezero. But how and what happened? So I think before we talk about Doublezero and about all the exciting things you did today, and there's certainly a lot to unpack here when it comes to DZ, but I personally are very interested in about your backstory, really. So all I want to know, really, and I think that will cover a lot already, is how you came to join Solana in the first place.
Yeah, so Solana was a little bit circuitous. So initially, my first job in crypto was a fintech company in 2017 that was failing and trying to pivot and build something on crypto. Didn't work. Had to find a new job 2 months later. But then went to Republic and ran marketing and helped them launch Republic Crypto, and then joined Bison Trails. And so Bison Trails was sort of like a blockchain infrastructure company. They ran a bunch of nodes, and they were sort of one of the early RPC providers who was offering dedicated RPC products. They got acquired by Coinbase, and I did not want to go work for Coinbase. Like Coinbase is a great company, but working for a large company didn't really feel like the next step for me. I wanted to get closer to crypto, not kind of further away from it. And so I was interviewing with a bunch of different L1s and L2s, and I got a call from a guy I used to work with being like, hey, what are you up to these days? And I was like, well, just left, Bison Trails, like trying to figure out the right next thing. And he goes, I just joined Solana Labs. You should come interview with us. And we supported, over 50 protocols at Bison Trails. And I'd never talked to anyone from Solana. Like this was like, mid 2020. And so the chain was not like what it was today. There, smart contracts weren't even deployed when the network launched, all this type of stuff. But it took the interview because like you always take an interview when someone's like, hey, you should really apply for this thing and like talk to folks. And I think 30 hours later, I had a signed offer letter from Raj and Toli. Like it was just
wow.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you think back then about Solana?
I would love.
What was your impression?
Yeah, so I would love to have said that like I saw this thing was going to be worth $250 someday because the token is like $1 when I joined. But it wasn't actually that at all. What I saw was Toli's vision as one global state machine that is what powers all information in all markets. This was at the time when everyone was doing sharding. Ethereum's roadmap was not L2 centric, it was sharding centric. You know, everyone was like, that was the way you thought you're going to scale blockchains. And I was like, I must be missing something. I don't understand how this is going to work, but like, I'm not an engineer. I haven't been in this space for, 10 years or, 5 years at that point. It's like, okay, so like the interviews, I think the best interviews that people usually do for jobs are ones where they don't really want the job and they're just kind of like asking questions like they already work there. And that was very much me with like Toli. And I was like, so like, how is sharding going to work? Like we have like an Aave chain and then like a curve chain and and he was like, oh, it'll never work. Like we need one global state machine for these markets to work. And sort of my takeaway from this was like, I have no idea if this thesis is right, but I'm going to learn a lot by working for the counter bet as opposed to working for the thing that everyone thinks is going to be correct. And it just turned out that Solana was largely directionally correct. Like it made intuitive sense to me that you want competitive markets in one global state machine as opposed to fractured markets that have some sort of shared security arrangement between them. That just intuitively made sense to me as the way you want to design high performance financial infrastructure.
One of the things that Toli used to talk about a lot, and I mean, I'm sure he still believes this, but you can scale the chain with physical hardware sufficiently. You don't need to have some sort of convoluted scheme to make it work. And so when I think of Doublezero, which is really building out independent, internet rails that are beyond the control of the big ISPs. It seems to me almost like an extension of that thinking, right? Where like we can approach the limits of literal physics to achieve our ends. Like we don't need to go, have some sort of complex sharding architecture. So I'm just kind of wondering, do you see Doublezero with that lens, or is it different for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so the thing Toli used to say is like, if you can't throw hardware at the problem, you haven't solved scaling. That like a system that can scale is one where if everyone goes from having $100 a month to run the server to $1,000 a month to run the server, you should get some multiple faster that's not like 25% faster, right? If you're spending 10 times the money on infrastructure, you should get at least a 5x return on performance. And yes, there's diminishing returns for all of those systems, but if you've architected a software system right, it will both scale down and scale up to various levels of hardware. Like the gold standard of this is Linux. It can run on your toaster and it can run on a supercomputer cluster. And it can do a pretty good job at both. And there's a lot of like performance optimizations you have to make it work, but like try that with like Windows 11. It's just like, it's not built for that type of a system. And so, when we think about this from the perspective of Doublezero, the question really at hand is, does Solana want to go faster than the public internet allows it to go? And that answer isn't yes for every blockchain, right? Ethereum very famously said, no, we actually want you to be able to run, like there were like wars in the Ethereum community about like exceeding a 56K modem speed. And like that is a certain philosophy and value proposition that, you can have if you're trying to build like the L1 that Ethereum is trying to build. But like our whole thesis has always been that like, if we don't build this thing as a high performant, fast, decentralized global network, someone else is going to, and it's going to work very well. And so this is kind of the thing with us, which for Doublezero is letting the public internet be an arbitrary cap on performance because you don't understand how centralized the public internet is like just the most mid-curve thing you could possibly do, because people have this idea of like, oh, the public internet, it's this like, I don't know, they think it's like run by a bunch of nonprofits or something, and they think it's like run by like thousands and thousands of companies, and like that is not the state of the public internet's an incredible resource. That is not the state of the public internet though.
How many is it? Maybe like what?
Yeah, exactly. Like what is the state
So-
of the public internet? Let's start there.
So if you look at tier 1 ISPs, and a tier 1 ISP is basically an ISP that has like a global network coverage. You can get from Tokyo to New York on fiber that they own and operate. There's maybe only, depending on how you count, between 10 and 14 of those in the world. And That's not that many. Now, the nice thing about them is they're not like all New York Stock Exchange listed companies. Like it's NTT, it's SK Telecom, and then it's also things like Verizon. And so there is kind of like a diversity of operator from that perspective. But the commonality between all of these is they have large entrenched business interests. And if something crazy happens and the idea that blockchain traffic is not allowed to be carried, like every blockchain's gone except Bitcoin at that point. It is really sort of this thing that people don't realize how much control and ability there is. There's a reason that it's very easy for dictators in, certain countries to just turn the internet off sometimes. That's not like a hard thing to do because these systems actually it's like turning the oil or the natural gas pipeline off. Like it's not hard. There actually are like not that many cables. Like Afghanistan had an internet blackout a few months ago and every Ethereum validator there went offline. Like people don't really think about what the vulnerabilities are when they think about these types of things. And so we do kind of two things at Doublezero. One is it's much easier to turn off the public internet than it is to turn off the private internet. And what do I mean by the private internet? Well, there's companies all around the world that run giant fiber networks. This is Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Facebook. And these are, as well as like Wall Street trading firms. And all of these private networks, they run sometimes on the same cable systems, but they're treated much more different by governments. It's sort of the idea of like, it's a lot easier to like ban a non-PFP account on Twitter than it is to ban like the president of Venezuela's Twitter account. Like those are two different things, and Twitter would not take those things as equal. They'll ban any random bot account that's violating its terms of service. The president of a sovereign country, maybe not, right? And so what we want to do is we want to have blockchain traffic running over not only faster pipes than the public internet with lower latency and higher performance and all these things, but we want them running on the same type of cable systems that the largest banks and financial institutions in the world are running on, not for some kind of like hand wavy, banking integration thing, but because we want, if someone wants to censor the Doublezero network, if a government actor, if the United States or China or the EU wants to censor this network, they're also censoring the world's largest financial companies and the world's largest technology companies. We want to be in the largest risk basket possible, and the public internet's actually a pretty small risk basket.
I gotta follow up right there real quick. Are there people in the world that don't like what you're doing?
I don't know about don't like. I mean, we get a lot of questions about isn't this centralized? And the answer of like isn't this centralized is a very interesting one, because the whole point of Doublezero is verifiable data transmission from independent network contributors. So we have today 11 independent network contributors. You can go to doublezero.xyz/dashboard. You can see the whole thing. That is a level of transparency you do not get over the public internet. But again, usually there's this kind of magical thinking about the public internet as just this good open public resource. And it's like, man, look up DNS. Like this doesn't work the way you think it does. So there's a little bit of that. I would say also one of the things with Doublezero is we are going to dramatically change the business models that certain types of companies need to do in their maybe current profit centers. So a lot of the monetization of validators and RPCs today is based on priority access to shreds. That's a component of it. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on. And, the battle for basically stake, like on Solana, if you don't have a lot of stake, you are behind the market because Turbine is stake weighted. So if your validator has more stake, you get updates more quickly than if your validator has low stake or if you're not running a validator at all. And so one of the things about Doublezero is we're going to change that entire paradigm because we can do simultaneous data delivery to everyone in the same city. There's this technology called multicast, which TradFi has been using for 20 years to enforce fairness in these systems. We can bring that to blockchain for the first time. So we are a little bit of a threat to some of the revenue structures of some blockchain companies today. I don't think that would mean anyone sort of doesn't like us, but there's maybe some folks who are not quite as excited about this transformation because it just means they have to redo some of their short-term revenue structures anyway. Now, the truth is Alpenglow is going to make a lot of the stuff go away anyway. We're just sort of accelerating that process.
Sure. So like I've watched, Doublezero's progress with great interest. But it wasn't until I was spending a little bit more time with Tom Lee, who we both know and love, also works at Doublezero. And obviously he wasn't able to share specifics, but I did not realize the amount of work that goes into like striking deals with telecoms in, let's say, Asia, right? And so like I think that's really important context, because a lot of folks understand what Doublezero is conceptually, but I don't think that they actually have a real appreciation for the types of deals that you have to negotiate, and like how exactly the business of building an open source internet for everybody looks like. So do you mind actually kind of sharing broad strokes without talking any specifics, that any details you're not allowed to share, about like what kind of work goes into building out this network?
So these networks are, for starters, quite expensive to operate. And so, when you look at sort of the value of the Doublezero network, there's probably something around $20 million a year in OpEx costs that go into this thing from the contributor side. Now, that's not our outlay. That's the folks who are providing the fiber. But, when you look at this, like, let's take an example, like my co-founder, Andrew McConnell, like he and his team built a high-performance global fiber network suitable for a high-frequency trading firm. That was one of the things he did in a previous job. It is a 2-year process to actually get that from design to implementation of that network. And he had a team of many people involved in that process. It involves shipping, like stuff blockchain people never think about, shipping stuff around the world. It is actually very hard to get equipment into a lot of countries. And even so, there's delays, there's customs, there's all of this stuff. And then at the end of the day, you got to remember, there's a guy in a data center somewhere plugging a cable into a cable. And like, this is like a physical infrastructure network. We sort of think of the blockchain as like, everything in blockchain is very abstract, right? There's not a lot of like hardware requirements that are about, it's like, okay, you need this much RAM and this type of CPU, but setting aside Solana, like Solana has like specific instruction set requirements, but like, hey, you need this model of specific Intel CPU because it has this type of hardware acceleration for this thing in it. This is like even a lower, more detailed level than that. And so the actual pathway that the cable takes across the ocean floor is meaningful to us as well, because we don't want a bunch of systems that are physically close to one another. Because if there's something like an underwater landslide, it can take out 2 cable systems that are running parallel to one another. So you want to make sure that they're a few hundred miles apart, and all these other types of things that you just don't think about when you're thinking about the public internet. So it's a quite challenging process to go and actually build this. And so to have built a network that has over 3 terabits per second of capacity and over 70 fiber links in less than a year, I mean, this is the power of tokens in blockchain. This would not have been possible without the independent contributor model.
And that is actually a direct follow-up to this, and I think it ties in with what you just said here, Austin. How important is Solana in your journey for Doublezero, really, and the validator ecosystem especially? Is it your go-to-market strategy? Is it considered that, or is it Doublezero? Or like, how important is it right now for you?
So we decided to start with Solana for a few reasons. One is like, it's obviously a community that I know and love and spend a lot of time working in. And the second is like, it is the hardest network to get right. If you sort of plot on a graph, like on one axis, you've got the number of validators, on the other, you have transactions per second. There's nothing that comes anywhere close to Solana. It is 1,000 validators and 7,000 transactions per second. The closest things you get are, you can find other networks that do 7,000 TPS or 5,000 TPS, but they've got 1/10 the number of validators. And so nailing this for Solana is like the hardest problem. And so this is kind of an old Tollyism of like, if you've got a hard thing to do it first, because then everything else is easier. And so for us, like starting with Solana was about starting with the like, if the Doublezero network can deliver meaningful value and performance improvements for validators on Doublezero, it can definitely do it for another blockchain or a non-blockchain system. But the goals of Doublezero are very much like beyond just blockchain and just Solana. It is an infrastructure project targeting really rebuilding the fundamental fabric of the internet, and over time, becoming the default way that folks send any type of performance associated data, whether that's where they need more bandwidth than the public internet has, or they need lower latency than the public internet can provide. We want to be able to service all of those types of use cases, from high performance financial systems to even things like multiplayer online gaming.
Cool. Understood. Okay, you gotta follow up on that. I have like two more
Yeah.
questions, I think, from my side.
Yeah, we're going to be respectful of Austin's time. He's a very busy man. But if I could ask one question, just being in the validator world, and obviously there's a lot of chatter around this, and we'd love to just hear it straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not calling you a horse, by the way.
Love it.
We cut that out. Yeah, cut it.
It's an idiom. I shouldn't use that idiom.
Yes.
Sorry, but no. But you folks, this is public information. Have I think about like a 13 million soul grant from the Solana Foundation. I could be a little. Is that correct? That number?
So it's not a grant.
Oh, it's not a grant. Excuse me.
It's not our soul. I would love if
not at
Solana
all.
Foundation decided to give us,
It's a loan,
hundreds of
right,
millions of
kind of.
dollars. But there's a group of investors and supporters who have contributed into a stake pool, and that is very much their asset, which they can withdraw at any time.
There's a 13 million soul stake pool. Let's put it that way. And the main purpose of the stake pool is geographic decentralization. There's also been the downscaling of the Solana delegation program. And so would love to just understand like how you envision the stake pool. I mean, I'm not talking about certain policies or whatever. I'm just like broad strokes to the philosophy behind it and how you want to push geographic decentralization, not just for Solana, but for Doublezero.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that one of the things that Solana is actually fairly concentrated at the moment. I wouldn't use the term centralized, but it's geographically concentrated in a few cities around the world. And we get a level of granularity into that is like much higher than anyone else sees because of the way we're connecting into validators directly, as opposed to just looking at IP addresses and sort of guessing where they are. And so one of the main things you see is that there is an economic hit to running a validator outside of the geographic core in many instances. And so if Doublezero has brought fast fiber into a new region and you're now able to run a validator there at much higher performance than you could before, that's awesome. We've done this in Sao Paulo in Brazil, that there's now actually a bunch of validators running down there. But that's not quite enough. You actually want to start dragging like this, sort of think about it as like a heat map, right? There's a center of gravity, like a gravity well. That's like where stake is located. We want to break that up and push it further out. And the deeper or the wider we can get that gravity well, the less of a disadvantage there is for running a validator somewhere else. And so if we have this sort of amount of stake pool, we can basically drag the center of gravity out of Central Europe and into other places. And so this means that not only do you need to bring fast fiber connectivity into somewhere like South America or South Africa or Korea, all these areas that or Dubai, right? Dubai's been requested for a while. Dubai's got a lot of weird government problems with high-speed fiber, but we're working through those too. And if we can move this sort of centralized component of the network out, this just increases fairness, right? And this is not a problem today for Solana, because Solana right now is only building one block at a time with 1 liter as 1.6 seconds to build 4 blocks. In a multiple concurrent leader world, the location, like decentralization becomes a really powerful market force. Because now suddenly, if a news event happens in South Africa, you want to be able to rush to the block builder in South Africa that's building the block. And you may be able to get your transaction included in that sort of local block builder faster than it would take you to run to the commodities market in Chicago to respond to some event that's happened that's going to shift the price of some commodity coming out of South Africa. And so this is where we think fast fiber, and pushing stake decentralization further out is really important to the long-term market structure of Solana.
Fascinating. I like that, especially as someone like we're also running validator, but in Utah, so we're not part of the good guys. We should get out of there. But I would love to, set something up in Bulgaria, for example, where I'm spending a lot of time, and it's not easy down there. And it's like Eastern Europe and kind of slow.
Yeah, but this is actually a great example. So like Rockaway X, right? They're a VC fund and an operator and a few other things, and they're based in Prague. And they were like, we run Solana validators in Prague. It's a little less profitable, but it's sort of like a hometown pride type thing. And they were like, we want to bring the Doublezero network to Prague. And we were like, okay, great. Like we'll help you kind of figure this out. But now they actually contribute fiber to the data centers that they operate in Prague that now allow their validators to be even more performant, even though they're not in the sort of Amsterdam, Frankfurt, London corridor.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that outlines the case very well. For also the case for validators to talk to Doublezero. Awesome. Okay, then getting to an end here in respect of your time, Austin. Maybe I think the perfect way to end this is to touch a little bit on DZ, the token. You're welcome. Which is obviously always a fun topic to talk about with founders, especially if the market is down. But we launched a month ago, pretty much, I think, or 2 months ago. Was it 2 months ago?
Yeah, October 2nd.
Yeah, so 2 months ago, pretty much. And obviously, the market went down. Everything's a bit difficult. Very high FTV at the launch, which a lot of people observed, and me included. I was like, okay, this is ambitious. What's your take on the situation? Like, help the people out a little bit to understand where this, like, we can't give financial advice, ladies and gentlemen. No one of us, neither Austin nor myself, but we can at least hear from the founders and the people that are working on these projects what they are thinking about the tokens and the trajectory and the future and the plans. So let's end with that, Austin.
Yeah, so we launched the Doublezero token at the same valuation of the previous round, so 7.5 cents per token, which was what the token sale cleared at over the summer, which was open to validators. That token sale did not actually even fully sell out. And so we sort of had no indication. I mean, like, we were sort of being told by exchanges and stuff like, hey, you haven't really done enough marketing. Like, we don't know if people are aware enough of the Doublezero token. And so we really had no indication that there would be such insane demand when the thing launched. And so, it's kind of this very unfortunate situation that happened in the beginning because, at peak, people were trading the token at, $15 billion at FTV, which is like a pretty ridiculous number for a product that just launched. That, look, we had great traction. We have 40% of Solana running on Doublezero today. But, some of those numbers got a little crazy. And so the problem, I would say, is the industry is a little schizophrenic about what it wants to happen in these situations. Because the only way you can prevent something like that happening or try and smooth out the curve is to do something that many people criticize, which is selling tokens from the foundation, right? We did not sell any tokens from the foundation as part of the launch. We did a very classic standard launch of a product across a wide base of venues and trading venues. And, at some point, the market does what the market's going to do. And so, I think the place we're at with the project is quite strong. We have 40% of Solana in 2 months is pretty good. And so, we're expanding out to other networks as well. And, we just added RPC support for Doublezero, but there's at least a year to a year and a half of real network engineering and building to feature complete even the Solana implementation of the Doublezero network. So this is very much still early days for the project. And it's awesome to see kind of all the support we've had from validators and operators, as well as, token holders in that process.
Yeah. One thing is for sure, like, even though token is down, as many tokens are these days, the brand seems to be very positively taken in the ecosystem, which is great. Like, a lot of people understand the kind of mission you're on, even if they have no idea what the fuck you're actually doing. I hope this helped a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Like, the conversation today, it is quite complex, not gonna lie, and ambitious. But
if anyone has ideas for how we can make this more intelligible, my DMs are open. Would love to chat.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we did an okay job even today, decent job at breaking it down. Like, thank you so much, Austin, for also breaking it down easily. I think we call it a day. We would send Austin in his day. I have plenty more questions theoretically, but
same.
We're gonna find you. We're gonna find you at Breakpoint, Austin.
Yes.
we're gonna do a second round of this. But yeah, I think we're good.
Excellent.
Yes, we are. And I just like to say, for all the folks that are watching, thank you very much for joining the stream. One observation that I'd love to make about the Doublezero team is that I think the average age of the team is much older than most teams that you'll see in crypto. And the reason for this is because all of these folks are experts in their fields. Many of whom are already independently wealthy to begin with, that are working on Doublezero because it's interesting, right? And because they've done this before, right? Which is what makes me so personally bullish on DZ. not just not financial advice, but I'm very bullish on it specifically because it's people who have already done this somewhere else, and they're just taking that playbook but applying it to a decentralized system. And so with that, Austin, thank you so much for bringing your wealth of experience, as well as telling us a little bit more about what Doublezero is in layman's terms. Simon, you want to close us out for today?
Hell yeah. Awesome. Thank you for coming on. And everyone else who is joining in the live stream, thanks for tuning in. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, on Twitter, then make sure to drop us a follow. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, and drop a comment if you have further questions for Austin for round number 2. And if you want to learn more about Doublezero themselves, then you can obviously find them on Twitter at Doublezero very easily. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at the next one. Austin, thank you.
Thank you.
Increase bandwidth, reduce latency.